Hey everyone, here we're going to tie a fly I teach for my intro class that is a parachute style dry fly close to the parachute atoms, but with a few less steps so that you can still understand how to manipulate all the materials but have a few less things to manage. It's really close to an atoms emerger and it still catches a lot of fish. First thing we're going to use is a TMC 100. This is a size 12. You can tie this all the way down to 22s and beyond, but this is a great size to learn on. I'm going to start my thread, this is 6/0, behind the eye and work my way back to the point of the hook, trim the excess, and I'm going to keep wrapping back to the barb. Here, I'm going to use some Antron yarn. This is spooled Antron. It also comes in cards and many other forms. And I need to pick out how much I want to use. For 12, I'm going to use probably a quarter of that yarn in this spool. Next, I'm going to use McFlylon. This is going to be my parachute post. You can also use Antron, you can use polypropylene, you can use Parapost. Do not be afraid to substitute. So I pared down how much I'm going to use. This is about half of the hank you get. Pull some of those errant fibers out of the way. And I'm going to tie this in. Where you tie this in is very important. I'm tying about a third of the way back. So this is 2/3 here, this is 1/3 up front here. I like to fold it across my thread. So it's important to have a decent length, and then bring it to the hook shank. 3 in front, 3 behind. And then I bring my bobbin vertical and I start wrapping around the parachute. If you use too much thread tension here, your parachute post will collapse. See how it's hopping around there? So a little bit of tension as you go. You're just going to wrap a little ways up and then back down. Alright. Next I'm going to bring my thread back towards the tail I created earlier, or the shuck. And now I'm going to start dubbing my body. I'm using Superfine. This is Adam's Gray. And you want to start really, really fine. If you use too much, you won't be able to build an appropriate taper, and your fly will look kind of funny. See, that was super teeny amount. And start right back there and slowly build forward. So I'm going to taper up the fly till I butt up against the parachute post right here. And make sure you rotate your fly once in a while, take a look, make sure you got everything covered. We do here. Next thing I'm going to use is some Grizzly Hackle. This is a sample pack we sell at the shop. It's really nice and easy, especially if you're just getting started. And these are saddles, not neck feathers. Saddles are going to be a lot easier to work with because it gives you a much longer feather to hang on to, much easier to manipulate. I'm going to prep the feather here and trim a little bit into the stem. And then I'm going to attach this by simply by wrapping in front and behind. Next thing is important. I'm going to bring this vertical And where I've wrapped onto my parachute post, oops, see, watch that thread tension, I'm going to wrap it up and down the post. And then I'm going to get my thread ready and dub the rest of this body. And you can go a little bit thicker here. And you do want to cover up the post. See how there's still an exposed spot. So I'll use just a little bit more. And cover that up. And I want to finish my fly, or finish my thread, right behind the eye. If you can leave yourself a little gap to tie this off at the end, you will not regret it. Okay. Now the fun part, I get to start wrapping my hackle. In this fly, I'm simply wrapping down the post, and these are all touching wraps. Sometimes it can help if you hang on to your post just to keep it steady. Okay, this is going to be about 5 or 6 wraps on here. And then I'm going to bring my bobbin nozzle up to the shank. And I'm going to trap this on the far side. But I'm going to add about 3 wraps right on top of this, as close to that shank as I can. Now I'm going to reach in with my scissors, keeping my bobbin out of the way, and trim that stem. Great. Now it's time to whip finish. And I use my 2 fingers here, my index and my thumb, to actually pinch the hackle and pull it back out of the way, exposing the shank so I can do a 5-turn whip finish. Trim your thread. Now you can adjust your post, make sure there's no trapped hackles. There always are, that's okay. You can always trim those off, try not to trim anything else. Now you can trim your post and trim that emergent tail. I like to use some really sharp scissors and use it almost like a saw so that they almost tear apart. So it's not all perfectly even, but that's pretty good. Now again, this is not the Adams, the traditional fly, but this is kind of a knockoff that's a little bit easier to tie and really easy to learn on. We're going to put another video with the actual Adams up soon, but get this one going. It catches tons of fish and teaches you some very useful techniques. Thanks.